This is Laura Sant with UNC's Highway Safety Research Center, and we are about to get started with the Watch For Me NC 2017 kickoff call. I think a few folks may still be joining. We have a few folks that are able to speak, and most everybody is in listen-only mode. But Kristen, can you still hear me and can you speak?
Yes, I can hear you, Laura.
Excellent. All right, and Ed, you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, and Brian, you may have muted yourself, but we've got Brian Massengill on the line as well.
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. So we are right at 11 on the hour, but again, I'll give folks a couple extra minutes as people are continuing to call in. This is our first kickoff call where we have been in webinar mode, where people are listen-in only mode. In the past, I know we've been able to have a meeting style where people can call in and make introductions. So we're not able to make introductions with everybody on the call today, but for those of you who are logging in, if you could list your name in the chat box and what organization you're with, that will help us, because sometimes we can only see your name and we don't know what community you're representing. So please take a moment, find that chat box, and enter in your name and your community. I'm not seeing anything in the chat box yet, so I want to make sure folks can hear me and can find that chat box. I'm seeing a couple of concern signs coming up and question marks. If you're having a problem, if you can find the chat box and type into it, we can also help respond.
Yep, we're getting some responses, Laura. They're answering in the questions panel.
Oh, in the question panel, okay.
And a lot of people are able to hear, so I think we're doing well.
Oh, okay, I'm seeing that in a different place. There we go. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started then. So this morning I'd like to welcome you all. Again, my name is Laura Sant with the Highway Safety Research Center. I'm joined by my colleague Kristen Blank, who's our communication manager, and we have Ed Johnson with NCDOT and Sergeant Brian Massengill with the Durham Police Department. And we are your main points of contact for the Watch For Me NC program for the 2017 year. So I'm going to give you a little bit of introduction to the program, and then we'll launch into what resources are new and available for partners this year. Some of this is pretty similar to the past if you've participated in the past, and some things are new. And we'll also talk a little bit more about what your responsibilities are as partners, and then we'll have time at the end for a discussion. So if you have any questions, again, everybody is muted, so please use that chat box, which is in the lower right-hand bar of your screen. And if you have any questions that don't get answered during today's meeting, you're certainly welcome to contact me or Kristen, or use the Google group, which is our listserv for this program. So again, here's some of the folks you're going to be hearing from a lot in the next few months. Myself, I focus mostly on providing the technical assistance and leading all of the share meeting calls that we're going to have in the next few months. Kristen, you probably have already heard from. She's coordinating all of the law enforcement training, and she's also got a very strong communications background and is going to be helping with any of the press releases or communication or social media needs for the project. And similar to last year, if you've been part of the program for the past couple years, you'll probably be hearing from Seth Lajeunesse at some point. He is our point person for conducting a lot of the evaluation and helping write up the results of the program from year to year. And that's especially important for us to know how things are going and how things are changing. So we'll talk more about that in the future as well. So the other folks that are on the call we've got 32 communities this year in 2017, and the folks that are highlighted in orange are our 8 new partners. So we'd really like to welcome all the new folks and welcome back all the other communities that are continuing to commit to the Watch For Me program and have been a member either once in the past or for multiple years in the past. We are continuing to spread across the state, and that's very exciting to see that we've got a large contingency on the coast, in the Piedmont region, and all the way out to the mountains. We started this program in 2012 with 4 communities in the Triangle, and we've been slowly and steadily gaining about 4 to 6 new folks a year. And this makes our 5th year that we've now been doing this Watch For Me program statewide. So I will go ahead and open our first poll. We do want to learn just a little bit more about who's on the call today and make sure everybody's able to participate interactively. So we just want to ask you guys what agency is leading your Watch For Me program. I'll give just a couple minutes for people to vote. If you are being led by a university or a community college or any other kind of group, you can classify yourselves as other, and we can see what folks are going to be really leading the efforts this year. Gotten almost everybody to vote. We'll close it. So it looks like the majority of folks on the call are led by the police department, but we do have a few folks that are being led by planning, or I know we've got a few folks being led by universities. So that just gives you a sense of the range of people that you'll be engaging with during these share calls and the folks that are on the listserv. So I know that everybody here is really aware of what the pedestrian and bicycle safety issues are across the state. Each year we have on average 950 bicyclists who are hit and about 2,700 pedestrians who are hit. And a sizable proportion of the pedestrians are killed as well. And so our long-range plan is to help prevent those injuries and fatalities. On the shorter term, we aim to use the Watch For Me program to raise awareness of the safety issues, both amongst the general public and amongst the agency staff that have the responsibility to address those issues. So we engage law enforcement, we engage community colleges, public works, planning departments, and everybody that we can to be talking and thinking about pedestrian and bicycle safety issues. And ultimately we want to create a culture of safety and use every opportunity that we can, whether it's through implementing policies or doing education or community outreach or law enforcement, to help prevent and reduce those pedestrian and bicycle crashes. And this is a very strong approach that is very, I think, well connected to other efforts that are happening, whether they're master planning processes or whether it's a Vision Zero plan that's happening in a community. So I think there's a lot of connections to be made with broader traffic safety initiatives through the Watch For Me program. You've probably heard this heard me say this before, but it's not an anti-jaywalking campaign. It's not a one-time media blitz or ticketing campaign. We're not just standing on the corner handing out flyers. It's really something much more substantive than that. It's a comprehensive, long-term effort led by a coalition of partners and driven by data and evidence. And so while we do hand out materials that are aimed at individuals, giving them brochures and information, we're also working at the organizational level, trying to engage partners and provide training and best practices and assistance. And we're still thinking about those bigger picture environmental and policy changes that are needed to have the impact that we care about on the whole population and not just reach a handful of people each year. And the safety behaviors that we focus on are pretty diverse, and it really depends on your community and your community's needs. So whether you are a campus community where you're seeing a lot of pedestrian and bicycle activity, you're going to have maybe different issues coming up than if you are a rural mountain town or a coastal community. But we try to be very balanced in the approach and think about all of the factors that might contribute to a crash, whether that was a driver failure, failing to see a pedestrian and yield, whether it was a pedestrian or a bicyclist not following the traffic signals and their own responsibilities. Maybe it was an issue where visibility was poor at night. And those are all the kinds of things that we're trying to make improvements upon through the Watch For Me program. And we've had a lot of successes to date. We're continuing to document what's happening through the program from year to year. And I think it gets more exciting the longer that we do this because we get to see some of those longer term effects start to take place. So we've now seen communities pass policies, pass resolutions, pass strategic plans to help reinforce pedestrian bicycle safety. We're seeing improvements in driver yielding in the places that we've been monitoring in the Triangle and Asheville and Greenville. We're seeing improvements in behavior, whether that's people that are reporting those self-reported behaviors or whether that's officers telling us that they understand the law better and they're going to be actually out there doing more enforcement operations. And some communities have reported to us reductions in crashes, and that's something that we are going to be exploring in much more depth this year because we do have some additional funding that's going to help us look into the crash-based impact of the program. So I want to move now into, that's just a little bit of information about the program. Now I want to move into some of the new resources and things that are going to be available this year in 2017. And that's going to be the materials and media that NCDOT is putting together for you, the technical assistance and training program that HSRC will be offering, and then we always have the listserv, which is watchformenc@googlegroups.com. You can email that group. You can, if you haven't been getting emails from it, you can email myself or Kristen or put a note in the chat box, and we can help get you added to that. Or if there's somebody in your coalition that you want added, you can let us know. And then another piece is the website. And if you have a moment, if you're in front of your computer, your internet, and you can bookmark this site, I think it'll be very helpful to you. It's watchformenc.org/partner-resources. It's a private site. It's not linked anywhere else, but you can find it. It is live. And it has all the resources that we're going to be pointing to throughout the year. So please get familiar with that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in this call today as well. So for the materials, we do have a range of materials very similar to what we've offered in the past. I know a few folks have asked us for kind of refreshed or updated looks to the materials, and we've talked with NCDOT about that. One reason for keeping the materials as they are is that we continue to see a need to brand the program consistently from year to year so that it's recognizable to the public. And one thing we've been hearing is that even if the materials might be kind of stale or very familiar to folks that have been part of the Watch For Me program for a long time, they aren't familiar to the wider swath of the population that we're trying to reach. And so we actually are making a conscious decision to continue using the existing materials until we hear that we've really reached that saturation point. And another factor that influenced our decision is there's been a lot of change between HSRC bringing on a new communications person and the new folks at NCDOT. And this year just wasn't the year for us to have capacity to do a complete overhaul of the materials. But that being said, we can make the logo and all of the files available if any community wants to take and do something different, do something tailored to their own community's needs. We're willing to work with you on that, provided we can see the materials and make sure that we're not getting too far out from what the Watch For Me material was intended to be. So please let me know if you want to have access to those materials. I know Greenville in the past has generated their own series of posters. And other folks may be interested in doing that as well. So let me know if you have an interest in that. These are the quantities that we're talking about this year. As I mentioned, the program continues to grow, and the funding, however, has not kept up. And so these materials are going to be probably a smaller amount than what folks have been used to in the past. But we're also taking into account feedback that we heard that agencies don't need 1,000 posters. And so we're tightening up on the posters and some of the materials that folks felt they didn't need. And we are still trying to get as many bike lights and the things that you want as we possibly can. But this is the average amount that's going to be available to each community. I can't promise this exact amount because it's going to also take into account the population and some of the activities that each community has planned. But this is just to give you a sense. There should be about 1,000 or 2,000 of each pedestrian and bicycle-focused bumper sticker. We have about 500 rack cards in English. We'll have additional materials in Spanish that are not reflected in these quantities. The banners and the sandwich boards are primarily going to be for the 8 new communities. But if you have a need for another banner or any sandwich boards, please let us know. And we are going to continue providing those morning ticket books to each community. We've got about 15 each, and those all have 100 warnings in each. So I think that will probably suffice for how many warning operations might be happening this year. But again, if you want to purchase any additional materials on your own, as many communities have done in the past, we are happy to provide the cost information and the vendor information so you have an estimate and a contact for who to approach to get additional materials. The media is also going to be purchased by NCDOT. They're working with their media buyer to line up where all of the media ads are going to be placed. It is very similar to last year in that we will have outdoor billboards, possibly mobile billboards in some of the places that don't have outdoor billboard options. We'll continue having transit ads, and we'll continue looking into the clean graffiti. Last year, we actually were very ahead of schedule at this point because we had to make the media purchases well in advance because of the election cycle. This year, we're a little bit back to what our schedule was in 2014 and 2015, where we're looking to have the media lined up closer to August for a back-to-school type of launch. We realize that that is not as helpful for some of the coastal communities that are really wanting to gear up in May and June, but we are prioritizing getting things lined up in the coastal communities first, and we'll be communicating very closely with you when those materials are surfacing. Ed, did you want to say anything about the media before we move on?
Sure, sure. Thank you all again for attending today and for giving your time to learn a little bit more about this. As Laura said, you'll have rack cards, we'll have citation books and posters in English and in Spanish. We'll also have the sandwich boards with the posters as well as the bumper stickers as we've done in years past. And we'll be doing the clean graffiti in different targeted areas as well as media campaigns for on the bus backs and the posters, really trying to reach an audience where they're doing that point of choice deciding, and just trying to reach them where they are. The media actually targeted areas will start at the latter part of June, the first part of July, and go through the end of August. And we're trying to target, obviously, pedestrians as well as bicyclists, but we see so much that the bicyclists are the larger target. We'll have the sidewalk stencils, we'll have the billboards, we'll have the interior and exterior boards on the transit buses, but we'll also have the Pandora, and using that to target and reach as many folks as we can. We seem to be real successful with that in our reach last year with so many folks. Let's see. I think that was the flight dates again for the clean graffiti and the transit for the bus backs and the interior signs. Will start at the end of June and move through to the end of August. And we have specific places that we're looking to have these initiated in specific municipalities based on crash data and other statistical information in order to target and get the best bang for our buck. Again, as Lauren said, we're fighting a budget and trying to utilize the money and the marketing firm as best we can for getting the word out and making the highest impact that we can. So if there are any other questions, I'll be on the call as we move through the presentation.
Thanks so much, Ed. And thanks, Ed, for fighting for us, too. I know you're coming in this year replacing the exiting acting director, Lauren Blackburn, and, you know, really catching up on a lot of issues this year and fighting through the funding shortage as well. So we really appreciate your championing this program from the inside. Mm-hmm. So the next piece that we'll be offering is law enforcement trainings. And these are really intended only for the officers, obviously, who are part of the program, although sometimes we have accepted active routes to school coordinators or others to sit in on parts of the course just to know a little bit more about what the training the officers are getting. But the main reason we ask for only officers is so that they feel comfortable in that environment to raise law enforcement related questions. And Brian Massengill, who's on the phone, is the lead instructor, as he has been in the past for these courses. And Kristen Blank is our point person who's going to be helping with the logistics and getting these courses organized. This season, we're going to be offering 4 of the full-day courses for the new partners, and then we're going to have 6 half-day courses for the returning partners. And at those courses is where we provide the materials that we mentioned, all of the posters and the rack cards and all the other physical materials that you'll be receiving are typically going to be handed out at these courses. There may be instances where agencies have to travel a little bit to get to the course that's nearest to them, And we'll have to work very closely with you to make sure you've got capacity to take back the materials that we're bringing. And if there's any situation where you need materials before you're able to send your officers to a course, we'll have to work through that with you. But this next slide shows the current scheduling of the course. We have started also this year a little bit later than we have in the past, but we'll be starting the first course June 22nd with Kill Devil Hills. And then we have courses already lined up with Elizabeth City, Wilmington, and Burgaw. And if you look at the bottom of this page, watchformenc.org/events is where you can register officers for those. So now that they're up and live on that page, feel free to start getting officers signed up to be in those seats. We have up to about 35 seats that can be included in each of those trainings. And you all have probably all heard from Kristen by now. She is working on lining up the rest of the courses to go through July and possibly into August in the other regions. One thing to note is that if your agency is new for the first time, you have to be in the full-day course. If your agency has sent officers to the course in the past, you can attend the half-day kind of refresher course, or you can attend the full-day course if you want to see everything that's new, the latest and greatest. Brian, do you want to cover a little bit now about what you'll be touching on in those courses?
Yes, I'll be glad to. I will start off by thanking everyone as well. And one of the reasons that we were talking about earlier about engineers and officers mixing in the class, it's okay, not that we're against it, but we try to hold back. You know, we don't have time in the class to teach people about stops and how to stop a car and things like that. So it definitely lets us get down to the bare bones with the officers from the engineering side of it, from the enforcement side of it, and from the educating side of it. And like you said, we have our full day class is definitely much more in depth. It really breaks it down. And I guess people think, what could take all day to do this? But it really breaks it down to letting people know that it is not a jaywalking campaign, that really jaywalking is not even, you know, it's weird how everybody thinks that you have to go use a crosswalk, or in some places you don't have to use a crosswalk. And it's really, it really helps go through the officers and let them know exactly what the law is, exactly what they can enforce and what they can't enforce, and help teach them first so then they can go out and teach the people in the community. The half day is more for officers that have already had that full day, and this is just a refresher to talk a lot more in depth about the reaction times. And even on the full day, the reaction times for officers is a big part of it. And what that just means is that pedestrian stepping out in front of the car or stepping out in front of traffic, that there needs to be, you know, you shouldn't stop that vehicle that's right there at the crosswalk. You should wait a while for you know, make sure that vehicle is beyond the reaction time so that they can stop or they have the ability to stop. And it just gives us a lot of time to go into that. And in class, we talk about court, what's good in court, or what questions might come up in court. And it's just it's a place to hash out a lot of the unknowns.
Thank you so much. And another thing that we've been talking about is the changes to the law that were made as of late 2016 and some that started early January 2017 under the new House Bill 959. So there were some changes that impact bike law and how we interpret and enforce and educate people around those. So we'll be touching on that in the law enforcement trainings, but also in our broader share meetings, so that as a program, we're consistent in how we're getting the messaging out to the community about what those changes to the law mean. So the technical assistance, the share meetings that I've mentioned, those are going to be very similar in format to what we're doing now. It'll be 1 to 2 hours. We'll spend the first part of the meeting giving updates and maybe diving into a specific topic where a lot of folks are having questions or problems. And then we tend to have a round robin at the end where we'll open up all the lines and folks can share their plans for the coming months and just talk about what they're planning on doing. And we always try to also incorporate not only what we know to be best practice from the research and from watching communities across the country, but we try to tap on you guys, the folks in these meetings, to share what you're doing and learning and make this a forum for peer-to-peer exchange. Because you guys are learning and experimenting and know as much as we do about these issues. In the past, we have covered a range of topics from building partnerships to reaching hard-to-reach populations like tourist communities that have high turnover rates, college students, and other groups. We've talked about effective communication. We've talked about ways to sustain the campaign throughout the year. And last year, we put a particular emphasis on how to work with engineers and public works departments to leverage what we learned from the Watch For Me program into changes to the built environment. And we really want to hear from you all on what your questions and concerns are this year so that we can tailor the program moving forward. We have certainly plans to meet every other month, and so our next meeting will be in July, and then we'll meet again in September and November. And so if I could ask a few polling questions right now, that'll help us understand what topics to line up so that we're giving you really timely information and can get the most out of these share meetings. So the next question here is, tell us a little bit more about what topic you would like to learn about. And if your topic is not showing up, I was only able to have 5 options here. If your topic is not showing up here, please enter what you would like to hear about in that chat box. I'm going to give about 1 more minute for folks to finish voting and looking at the topics. Got 91% have voted, so we're waiting on a couple more people. Okay, I'll go ahead and close and share. So it looks like a lot of folks are interested in understanding more about using crash data to identify problems. And I was really hoping you'd say that because I think that's a topic that I'd like to cover more as well. How do we learn about the crashes themselves, and then how do we use that to figure out what behaviors we should be focusing on and understanding the behaviors that are contributing to crashes. So that may be the topic that we focus on in July, and then we can think about some of these other topics as well. The social media and policies, I think those we get a lot of questions about that. And now that we've got Kristen Blank on board, she is our social media guru, and she's going to be helping. I think she's going to help a lot of us figure out how to be really strategic with our time and using social media wisely. So the next poll we'd like to ask is for you to give us a little bit more input on the days of the week and the times that work well to meet. Because we We know that there's always going to be scheduling issues for folks. We will archive all of our presentations and put them on the partner resources page. But we'd like to be able to schedule all of these events at a time that works for the majority. So if you could just let us know what is your preferred meeting day really quickly. Okay. Looks like earlier in the week is better for most folks. And if we were choosing between a Monday or a Tuesday, if you could let us know what time of day is preferred. Okay, thank you so much. And then finally, we're curious to know if anybody has an interest in traveling up to an hour in order to be part of an in-person meeting, if we were able to organize that. That is something that we've heard in the past was of interest to a few groups. We're trying to get a sense on whether folks would really find that in-person time valuable. And we're able, from our side, to see who answered what, and so if it's not valuable to everybody, but it is valuable to a select group, we might be able to follow up and try to coordinate that. Looks like a lot of folks are interested in meeting in person. One thing that we do encourage with the share meetings is for you to use that time to engage your entire coalition. Rather than just sending one person to the meetings, if you can set aside a little bit of time before or after to have your own coordination meeting, then you could come in and all learn together about what's happening and all be part of that and get that information directly. Rather than putting the burden on one person to have to distribute everything that they learn from the share meetings out. That has worked very well in some of our communities. So I mentioned the partner resources page, and it is up to date with some new resources. One thing to take a look at is the 2017 partner contact list. You should see a name for your community. If it's wrong or if it needs to be updated now or at any date in the future, please let us know so that we can make sure that list is up to date. That's really a go-to resource for us to know who to contact, or if we get contacted by the media and we need to be able to send them to somebody local, we use that partner contact list a lot. The other thing right underneath that is the Active Routes to School Coordinator contact list. Many folks have told us how valuable it is to be engaging with their Active Routes to School coordinators when they're working on bike rodeos or getting materials out through schools or working with PTAs. It's really an invaluable network of people. And so if you haven't taken a look yet, please do so at that Active Routes to School coordinator list and find the person who is overseeing your region. The other thing we have on this page is some updated resources on communication plans and media. We encourage people from the very beginning to be prepared to engage the media. We don't, as Ed mentioned, we don't have a ton of advertising. So we rely very heavily on earned media. So anytime you are doing enforcement, or you just want to announce that you became part of the Watch For Me program, or you are starting to work with schools or do a bike rodeo, all of those are opportunities to engage the media and the broader public about pedestrian and bicycle safety issues. So the toolkit we have put together with some talking points about the program, it's got some template press releases you can use or you can adapt. And we also have a timeline of some events coming up that it might be very timely to do communications around. So for example, May is National Bike Month, and so there's a lot happening now for Bike Month. Bike to School Day is this week, and there's all kinds of other bike to work events happening. Those are all really good opportunities to start talking about the Watch For Me program and bicycle safety. And that timeline also has other opportunities that might be happening in 2017. And the communications plan template is also something that we've heard from communities in the past that was helpful. It's really just a way to think strategically about what your resources are and what your goals and plans are for this 2017 year. So we welcome you to use those materials and also share if you're using them and developing your own communication plans. If you send anything to us, we can also post it on this website, and we've heard that it's very helpful for the other partners to hear what plans are happening. So now I'll move into a little bit about what each community's responsibilities will be as part of the program. And they're really no different than in years past for folks that have been participating in prior years. Sending officers to those trainings is really critical. Even if you have sent officers in the past, as we mentioned, the laws are changing. There's new information. We have new best practices that we're always adding. And so the course will look different this year than what they might have gotten in the past. Or maybe you have new officers that you can send. Please send officers and send folks to the share meetings that we're lining up. Make sure that you have a plan for distributing those materials that you're provided. And then the operations that are happening, we really want to hear about what's happening and make sure that each community is really engaging strategically in some form of law enforcement. We know that it's going to be different in different places. It'll be more focused on warnings in some places or good ticket programs, but other folks are still focusing very heavily on citations and making the community understand that it's not acceptable to break some of these laws. And so whatever enforcement approach your community is taking, we really want to be hearing about that and learning how things are going. And that ties into that last piece about program evaluation. Program evaluation helps us know what's happening. Now that we have 32 communities spread out across the state, it's harder than ever to know what's happening, but it's also more important than ever to know what's going on and which efforts are making an impact so that we can help share those experiences and also improve the technical assistance that we provide. And as Ed mentioned, you know, funding is getting more difficult to obtain, and so the more we know what you're doing and how it's affecting your community, the more we can also help make the case for funding the Watch For Me program in the future. So just to put a little bug in your ear about what we're going to be asking for, sometime in the fall we will be sending out an email link to a survey. Our intent is not to make this overburdensome, but we really just want to gather a sense from you all on how much time you're spending on the program, how you're engaging with the community, how you're distributing materials, and what media coverage or other kind of results you're seeing. And we'll use that information in our program summary report. And the 2016 program summary we are about to have ready to post on the website this month. And you will see it documented some of the really amazing activities that were done in the past. The other piece that we are going to continue asking for is, as I mentioned, for you to report on what law enforcement is happening. We have a web-based form, watchformenc.org/reporting. We also link to it from the partner resources page that hopefully you've bookmarked. We would really like this to become a standard operating procedure, that every time you do an enforcement operation, as soon as it's over, you go in and fill out this online form and let us know what happened. If that can become commonplace and routine, that will really expedite our data collection that we have to do. And then finally, at the end of the year, we will be having another in-person, not in-person, but a phone-based interview where we can ask a little bit more qualitatively what you got out of the program, what changes, bigger changes might be taking place during this time frame, and then any other general successes and lessons that you've learned. And we use those to put up very brief case studies of all the communities on the website. And those have been very popular and very useful to other communities that are trying to learn from the Watch for Me partners to see what's happening. So if you go to watchformenc.org/about, you can see the community profiles and all the updates that we've added. We're still updating a few last lingering communities, but you can go and look and see what all of the communities to date have reported to us in very nice, succinct two-page write-ups. So many thanks to Kristen and to Seth and all the folks that have been helping put those partner profiles together, and to all of you on the call who have been part of those phone calls and surveys to help gather information. That's really what it helps contribute to. So just some parting advice before our next meeting in July. Start coordinating with partners now. Start looking through the materials on the website, thinking about your plans, thinking about what problems you may be facing. Use the listserv, call us if you have questions in the meantime. I know many of you are already really well immersed in plans for the summer. So if your training for officers hasn't happened and you have questions now, feel free to reach out to us. And here is some information. So my information is at the top. If you need to contact me or Kristen, you can do that. Also, we've got Ed's information, but if you want to ask me questions first, I can try to answer anything before hammering Ed with more emails. But also I've included Brian Massingill's information if you have questions about the law enforcement, but we will be working very closely with everybody on that piece. So I think I've wrapped up all that I wanted to get across. Ed, Brian, Kristen, is there anything that I left out or questions that have come up in the chat box while I was talking that we need to discuss now?
Hi, it's Kristen. I think that you covered everything, Laura, and a lot of the questions and chats that have come up for me have been talking about materials and needing materials in advance. So we're going to set up calls with those specific people to figure out their needs, and then also some training questions as well. So it's been good for me to help coordinate these needs in the future. So thanks.
Okay, thanks. Brian, Ed, any other parting comments?
Hey, this is Brian. I think you did a good job. I'm looking for a good year. And if anybody has any questions, they have my email there and my cell phone.
Thanks. And one thing, we have gotten some questions from communities, from officers asking if they can be trained to become an instructor. That is something that we've been talking about with Ed and Sergeant Massengill, and we're thinking about how we can develop a Train the Trainer program. If you have an interest in that, if you will please let me know after this call, we can start putting together a list of folks that might be interested in leading trainings in the future. Because we do see that as the program grows, I don't know how much time Brian has in his day, but I can't imagine we can always keep up with this demand. So,
I did have one other thing, Laura. This is Ed. When you all, especially the new partners, are thinking you're drinking from a fire hose from all this information and all this materials coming in, you'll start to get your sea legs towards how to approach it and how to disseminate the information. I'd like to encourage you all as the lead agency to remember that you are just that, the lead agency, and to remember to partner within your communities so that you're distributing the work, you're distributing the load in order to get the information out. And some of the places that we've seen where information can be shared or partnerships can be built are across or inter or intra-agency within the city governments, the towns, the county governments, but also within other emergency management services for fire or county sheriff, even perhaps parks and recreation at the county or municipal level, the school systems certainly, but also within health and human services. The health departments have a myriad of ways of getting information out and being able to disseminate information. Even perhaps your library system at a municipal or a county level, and then also working with some of the private sector folks. Even perhaps there's an insurance group in a town or an area that you want to work with, or even a law firm perhaps that could help you get information out. But they're great ways to be able to disseminate the information and not feel as though you as one singular point person that may have been appointed by your chief or your captain to get this information out, but that you can kind of yoke yourself with other folks to help spread the word and spread the load and not feel as though you're inundated with so much information to distribute or to be able to know. Now, hopefully that's helpful for you.
That's very sage advice, Ed. Thank you. Yes, and I would like for folks to also remember that we're here to help be a resource for you. In particular, we're going to be trying to develop some template social media posts that you can adapt and use so that not everybody feels like they have to reinvent the wheel each time they're reaching out to the community. We will be using the hashtag #WatchForMeNC as a way to track what's happening. And if you go to that, you can also see some of the posts that people have used in the past. Don't forget that is an option, and that the Google group, the listserv, is there. If you have questions or if you have needs, that is exactly what we're here to help with. So we will archive a recording of this and all other materials on the Partner Resources page. When we have the meeting date and time set for July, we will also be posting an announcement there and going through the listserv to let you know any other news that's come up in between now and then. But thank you so much for your time. We're so excited that we have so many folks coming back for another year and so many new partners. This is, I can tell you, the biggest growth rate that we've had in new partners since we began statewide with the call for applications. And we're thrilled to see so much interest in pedestrian and bicycle safety and to having a very successful year.
Thank you all again for your work, and thank you all for getting the word out about this and working so hard to reduce severe injury and fatalities for these folks. It clearly makes a difference.
Thank you. I will close the call now, and we look forward to talking again soon.